Hello there, my dreamy travelers. Tonight, we drift into a story woven in white lace and forever promises, where love becomes eternal beneath a canopy of ancient trees. We'll wander through Bella and Edward's wedding day, through vows spoken at twilight's edge, through a honeymoon in paradise that transforms into something unexpected, something miraculous and terrifying in equal measure. So, close your eyes now, breathe slowly, and let the world fade into twilight. Step into the moment where mortal vows meet immortal eternity, where a human heart dares to love beyond life itself, and a wedding marks not an ending, but a threshold into forever. Bella Swan woke on August 13th to sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. Actual golden sunlight that painted rectangles across her childhood quilt and made the dust motes dance like tiny stars suspended in air. For a moment, caught in that fog between sleeping and waking, she forgot what day it was, forgot the significance of the date circled in red on her calendar. Then reality crashed back with the weight of inevitability and choice, intertwined. Today, she would marry Edward Cullen. The knowledge sat in her chest like something physical, heavy and light, simultaneously terrifying and exhilarating in ways she couldn't fully articulate. Today marked the end of Bella Swan as a singular entity and the beginning of something else, something joined and permanent and chosen with full awareness of its weight. The house was already awake around her, sounds filtering up through the floorboards that suggested activity and preparation. Charlie's heavy footsteps in the kitchen, the smell of coffee brewing, the low murmur of voices that meant Renee had arrived from Florida sometime during the night, while Bella slept. Bella lay still for another moment, memorizing this feeling, this particular quality of morning light in her childhood bedroom, the familiarity of these walls. Soon everything would change. Soon she'd be Edward's wife. And shortly after that, she'd be transformed, become vampire rather than human. This room, this house, this version of herself, all of it was temporary, already slipping into past tense even as she lived it. A soft knock on the door interrupted her contemplation, and Charlie's gruff voice came through the wood. "Bells, you awake? Your mother's here, and she's about to start rearranging my entire kitchen if you don't come down and distract her." Bella smiled despite her nerves. "Coming, Dad," she called, her voice still rough with sleep. Downstairs, Renee practically vibrated with excitement, her artistic energy manifesting as constant motion, hands gesturing as she talked, eyes bright with enthusiasm. She pulled Bella into a hug that smelled like the floral perfume she always wore, holding on just a beat too long. "My baby's getting married," Renee said, pulling back to study Bella's face. "You're so young, Bella. Are you absolutely sure about this? We can call it off, you know. Nobody would judge you for changing your mind." "I'm sure, Mom. Bella said, and meant it, despite the nervousness churning in her stomach. I love him. I want this. Charlie was quieter, his discomfort with the day's events evident in the way he couldn't quite meet Bella's eyes, the way his hands kept finding tasks, wiping already clean counters, reorganizing the coffee cups. He'd never quite warmed to Edward, still suspicious of the boy who'd broken Bella's heart the previous fall, only to return and reclaim it in spring. But he was trying, making an effort for Bella's sake, and that meant everything. He'd rented a tuxedo that hung awkwardly on his frame. He'd agreed to walk her down the aisle despite his reservations. He'd even managed to be civil to Edward during the rehearsal dinner. I got you something, Charlie said suddenly, crossing to a drawer and pulling out a small velvet box. It was your grandmother's. I thought you might want to wear it today. Inside the box was a silver hair comb, delicate and antique, the kind of accessory that belonged to a different era. The silver was tarnished slightly, the small crystals embedded in it, catching the kitchen light in subtle ways. Dad, Bella breathed, tears pricking her eyes. It's perfect. Your grandmother wore it on her wedding day, Charlie said gruffly, his eyes suspiciously bright. And my mother before her. Figured it should stay in the family. The tradition of it, the connection to women who'd made their own choices about love and marriage, settled around Bella like a blessing. She hugged her father, feeling his surprise at the display of affection, his awkward pat on her back that said everything his words couldn't. Alice appeared at 9 o'clock sharp, bursting through the front door with the energy of someone who'd been awake for hours. Vampires didn't sleep, and Alice particularly had spent the night making final adjustments to the ceremony setup, watching futures to ensure everything would unfold perfectly. Time to go, Alice announced, her pixie face bright with excitement. We have 6 hours until the ceremony, which means we have exactly enough time to make you absolutely perfect, Bella. Come on, let's move. The transition from Charlie's house to the Cullen residence happened in a blur. Bella hugged Renee, promised to see her in a few hours, accepted Charlie's gruff reminder to call if she needed anything. Then she was in Alice's Porsche, the scenery flashing past at speeds that should have been illegal, arriving at the Cullen house in minutes. The house had been transformed overnight into something that belonged in magazines rather than reality. White flowers cascaded from every surface, roses and lilies and orchids arranged in displays that must have cost thousands of dollars. Ribbons hung from the massive trees in the backyard, creating pathways that led toward the ceremony site. Chairs arranged in perfect rows faced an arch covered in more flowers, the forest forming a natural cathedral backdrop. Inside, the house buzzed with quiet activity, Esme coordinating with caterers who'd arrived to prepare food for the human guests. Carlyle reviewing his efficient notes, his kind face carrying the weight of performing a ceremony that meant more than typical weddings. Emmett wrestling with his bow tie, cursing cheerfully, until Rosalie appeared to fix it with patient exasperation. And Rosalie herself, spectacular as always, her golden hair perfect, and her expression carrying something that might have been approval as she looked at Bella. We're doing your hair, she announced. Alice picked your dress, but hair is my domain. Come on. The next hours passed in a strange suspension of time, moving both too fast and too slow. Bella sat while Rosalie worked magic with curling iron and bobby pins, creating an elegant updo that managed to be both sophisticated and romantic. Alice fluttered around, applying makeup with artist's precision, her cold hands gentle on Bella's face, her visions ensuring every detail would photograph perfectly. Then came the dress. It hung in Alice's room, protected by layers of tissue paper and garment bags, waiting for this moment. When Alice finally unveiled it, Bella's breath caught. The gown was perfect, exactly right in ways she hadn't been able to articulate when they'd found it months ago. Satin that caught light like water, long sleeves that would hide any imperfections, a modest neckline that managed to be both traditional and modern. The train was long, but not excessive, elegant rather than ostentatious. With Alice and Rosalie's help, Bella stepped into it, felt the weight of the fabric settle around her, the way it transformed her into someone who looked like a bride. They fastened the dozens of tiny buttons running down the back, adjusted the veil that had belonged to Esme and before her to some Cullen ancestor whose name was lost to time. When Bella finally looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. The girl looking back was beautiful in a way Bella had never felt, polished and perfect, and ready for the most important day of her life. "You look perfect," Alice said, her voice carrying satisfaction and something deeper, affection for the human who'd become her sister in every way that mattered. "Edward's going to lose his mind when he sees you." Esme appeared in the doorway, her gentle face soft with maternal love. "Bella," she said quietly, "you're beautiful. Welcome to our family, officially." The words, the acceptance, the love evident in every Cullen face made Bella's throat tight with emotion. This was her family now. These vampires who'd chosen to protect her, to accept her, to love her despite every complication she represented. Soon she'd be one of them, cold and immortal and forever bound to this strange, beautiful family. But first, she had to walk down an aisle and marry the vampire who'd stolen her heart, whose love had survived separation and danger and every obstacle fate had thrown at them. "It's almost time," Alice said, checking the delicate watch on her wrist. "The guests are arriving. Your father's waiting downstairs. Are you ready?" Bella took one last look in the mirror at this version of herself, human and warm and standing on the threshold of forever. Then she nodded, her certainty stronger than her fear. "I'm ready," she said. "Let's go get married." The descent down the Cullen staircase felt surreal. Each step carefully measured in heels Alice had insisted were perfect, despite Bella's protests about her notorious clumsiness. The dress whispered against the stairs, the train following behind like a white shadow, and Bella gripped the banister with one hand, the other clutching a bouquet of white roses and freesia. Charlie waited at the bottom, looking uncomfortable but distinguished in his rented tuxedo, his face doing complicated things when he saw Bella in the full wedding regalia. His eyes went suspiciously bright, and he cleared his throat twice before managing to speak. "You look beautiful, Bells," he said, his voice rough with emotion, "just like your mother did on our wedding day. Though I gotta say, I never thought I'd be doing this when you were barely 18. "Dad," Bella started, but Charlie held up a hand. I know. You love him. You're sure. Just promise me you'll be happy. That's all I want." Bella hugged him carefully, mindful of the dress and veil, breathing in the familiar smell of his aftershave and the gun oil that never quite washed out of his clothes. "I promise, Dad. I'm happier than I've ever been." Through the glass walls of the house, Bella could see the ceremony site, the rows of white chairs filling with guests. Her classmates from Forks High School, dressed in their nicest clothes, looking around with obvious awe at the Cullen property. Angela Weber in a soft blue dress, Jessica Stanley practically vibrating with excitement, Mike Newton looking uncomfortable in a suit that didn't quite fit, and the vampires. The Denali clan had arrived from Alaska. Tanya and Kate and Carmen and Eliza and Garrett, all of them inhumanly beautiful, sitting interspersed among the humans, their stillness marking them as different to anyone paying close attention. The sun was beginning its slow descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink that filtered through the ancient evergreens. The light hit the flowers just right, making the white petals seem to glow, transforming the backyard into something magical. Music started, a string quartet playing something classical and beautiful that made Bella's throat tight. This was it. This was the moment where everything changed, where Bella Swan became Bella Cullen. "Ready?" Charlie asked, offering his arm. Bella took it, feeling the solid warmth of him. "As ready as I'll ever be," she said. They walked through the house toward the back door. Renee was already seated in the front row, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue, her artistic soul completely overwhelmed by the romance of the setting. She waved when she saw Bella, her smile bright and tearful. Then they were outside, standing at the head of the white carpeted aisle, and Bella's eyes found Edward at the end of it, and the rest of the world simply disappeared. He wore a simple black tuxedo that looked like it had been tailored specifically for his frame. His bronze hair caught the evening light, and his golden eyes were fixed on Bella with an intensity that made her breath catch. He looked beautiful and ancient and terrified and overjoyed all at once, every emotion playing across his usually controlled features. Carlyle stood beside Edward, looking dignified and kind in his role as both father figure and officiant. Emmett flanked Edward's other side as best man, his massive frame barely contained by his tuxedo. Jasper stood just behind them, his gift keeping the emotional atmosphere calm and joyful. The music shifted, becoming the traditional wedding march, and everyone stood, turning to watch Bella's approach. She felt their eyes on her, human and vampire alike, but all she could really see was Edward, the way his face transformed when she started walking toward him. Charlie walked slowly, matching his pace to Bella's careful steps. They passed Renee, who was openly crying now, past Angela and Jessica and the other classmates, past the Denali clan, who watched with knowing smiles, understanding what this ceremony actually meant. Then they were at the arch, and Carlyle was asking the traditional question: who gives this woman to be married to this man? Charlie's voice was rough but steady. "Her mother and I do," he said. Then he lifted Bella's hand from his arm and placed it in Edward's cold one. The contrast between warm and cold, human and vampire, stark and significant. Edward's fingers closed around hers gently, his touch as careful as always. Charlie stepped back, taking his seat beside Renee, and Bella and Edward stood together under the arch, facing Carlyle, hands joined. Carlyle began the ceremony, his voice carrying across the assembled guests with preternatural clarity. "We are gathered here today to celebrate the union of Edward and Bella, to witness their commitment to each other, to support them as they begin this journey together. Marriage is a sacred bond, a choice to love and honor and cherish another person through whatever may come. It requires courage and trust, and the willingness to be vulnerable, to open your heart completely to another soul. The words were traditional but carried additional weight in this context, speaking to commitments that would span centuries rather than decades, to a bond that would survive transformation and immortality. Edward and Bella have chosen to write their own vows, Carlyle continued. Edward, if you would begin. Edward turned to face Bella fully, both her hands in his now, his golden eyes holding hers. His voice when he spoke was quiet but steady, meant for her but carrying to every guest present. Bella, he said, before I met you, I'd existed for nearly a century without truly living. I convinced myself I was content with my isolation, that I didn't need or want human connection. Then you walked into my life and changed everything. You made me want to be better, to be more than the monster I believed myself to be. You saw past everything I am and chose to love me anyway. I don't deserve you, will never deserve you, but I promise to spend eternity trying. I promise to love you with everything I am, to protect you, to honor your choices even when they terrify me. I promise to be your partner, your equal, your companion, through whatever comes. You are my life now, Bella, my forever, and I am yours, completely and eternally. Bella's eyes were swimming with tears, her throat tight with emotion. She'd known Edward loved her, had felt it in every protective gesture and worried glance, but hearing him say it in front of all these witnesses made it feel more real somehow, more binding. Bella, Carlyle prompted gently, your vows. Bella took a shaking breath, finding the words she'd practiced. Edward, she began, her voice quieter than his but no less certain. When I moved to Forks, I thought I was giving up everything interesting, everything important. I thought my life would be small and grey and forgettable. Then I met you, and suddenly everything was in colour. You've given me more than I ever thought possible. Adventure and danger, and a love that's bigger than anything I could have imagined. You think you don't deserve me, but I know the truth, which is that I'm the lucky one. I get to love you. I get to spend forever with you. I promise to be brave, to be strong, to be worthy of the gift you've given me. I promise to love you through whatever comes, human or vampire, mortal or immortal. You are my forever too, Edward. My choice, my love, my everything. The words hung in the evening air, simple and profound, carrying weight beyond their surface meaning. These weren't just wedding vows. They were promises that would bind them through transformation and eternity. The rings, Carlyle said, and Emmett stepped forward with a velvet box. Edward took a ring from the box, a simple gold band that had belonged to his father, Edward Sr., over a century old and carrying the weight of family history. He slid it onto Bella's finger above the engagement ring that had belonged to his mother, joining past and present and future in gold and promise. Bella took the other ring, also gold and simple, and slid it onto Edward's cold finger with hands that only trembled slightly. The metal looked strange on his hand, this symbol of human marriage on a vampire's finger, but it felt right. By the power vested in me, Carlyle said, his kind face soft with approval and love. I now pronounce you husband and wife. Edward, you may kiss your bride. Edward's hands came up to cup Bella's face, his touch gentle and reverent, his golden eyes searching hers for one more moment of confirmation before we leaned in. The kiss was careful and sweet and entirely chaste given their audience, but Bella felt the restrained passion in it, the century of loneliness and longing that Edward was pouring into this single moment of connection. The guests erupted into applause, human and vampire alike, the sound washing over them as they broke apart. As Edward took Bella's hand and they turned to face their witnesses as husband and wife. Renee was sobbing openly now, Charlie looking uncomfortable but proud, and their classmates were grinning and clapping, caught up in the romance of it. "I present to you, Carlyle," announced, his voice carrying joy. "Mr. and Mrs. Edward Cullen." They walked back down the aisle together, hands joined, Bella's train trailing behind them, moving from ceremony into reception, from single entities into a married couple. The evening light painted everything gold, and somewhere in the forest a bird sang, and Bella felt the weight and joy of choice, of commitment, of having chosen this path with full knowledge of where it led. She was Edward's wife now. Soon she'd be vampire too. But right now, in this moment, she was simply happy, surrounded by love and flowers and the people who mattered most, walking into her future one careful step at a time. The reception unfolded like something from a dream. The Cullen backyard transformed into an elegant celebration space that managed to feel both intimate and grand. White lights had been strung through the trees, creating a canopy of stars that would illuminate the gathering as evening deepened into night. Tables draped in white linen held centerpieces of roses and candles, and a polished wooden dance floor had been installed on the lawn, waiting for the traditional dances that would mark the evening's progression. Bella and Edward entered the reception area to applause and cheers, her hand tucked into the crook of his arm, both of them wearing smiles that felt permanent. They were married now, husband and wife. The reality of it kept hitting Bella in waves, moments where she'd glance at the ring on her finger or catch Edward's eye and feel the weight and wonder of what they'd just done. The first dance came almost immediately, a tradition Alice had insisted on despite Bella's protests about her coordination. Edward led her onto the dance floor as music swelled from the speakers, something classical and romantic that fit the moment perfectly. "I've got you," Edward murmured as they began to move, his cold hand firm against her back. "Just follow my lead. I won't let you fall." And he didn't. Edward guided her through the dance with such skill that Bella's usual clumsiness became irrelevant, her feet following his lead without conscious thought. They moved together across the floor, and for those few minutes, nothing existed beyond the bubble of space they occupied. When the song ended, guests applauded. Then the DJ was announcing the father-daughter dance, and Charlie was approaching with visible reluctance, his discomfort with formal dancing evident in every line of his frame. They managed the clumsy circuit of the dance floor, Charlie's cop-rigid posture making the dance more shuffled and waltz, but his eyes were soft when he looked at Bella. "You'll always be my little girl, Bells," he said quietly. "Even married, even grown up. You know that, right?" "I know, Dad," Bella said, her throat tight. "Thank you for being here." The evening progressed through its choreographed stages. Bella danced with Carlyle, who welcomed her officially into the family with words that made her eyes sting. She danced with Emmett, who lifted her off her feet and spun her around until she was dizzy and laughing. She even danced with Mike Newton, awkward and wistful, and Eric, enthusiastic and kind. Food appeared for the human guests, elegant catered dishes that Esme had organized. The vampires didn't eat, of course, but they moved through the motions convincingly, holding glasses of champagne they'd never drink. maintaining the careful fiction of humanity. Toast came as the sun finally dipped below the horizon, and the string lights became the primary illumination. Emmett went first, his massive frame rising from the head table. "To my new sister," he said, his voice carrying across the assembled guests. "Bella, you're either the bravest person I've ever met, or the craziest. Probably both. You're marrying into a family of vampires, which shows either incredible courage or complete lack of self-preservation instinct. But Edward loves you more than I've ever seen him love anything in the century I've known him. So welcome to the family, Bella. Try not to let Edward's brooding drive you too crazy." Laughter rippled through the crowd, and Bella felt Edward's hand find hers under the table, squeezing gently. Alice stood next, her pixie face bright with joy. "I've seen a lot of possible futures," she said. "Some good, some bad, some absolutely terrible. But the best futures, the ones that shine brightest, are the ones where Bella is part of our family. To Bella and Edward, to forever, to family." More applause, more champagne glasses raised in toast. The cake was cut, an elaborate white creation that Bella and Edward fed to each other with appropriate ceremony, while cameras flashed and guests cheered. As the evening deepened and the party reached its comfortable middle phase, Bella found herself pulled aside by various people wanting private moments, final words before she and Edward departed for their mysterious honeymoon. Jessica hugged her tight, tears in her eyes. "I can't believe you're married," she said. "We just graduated. We're supposed to be going to college, not getting married." "I know it seems fast," Bella said. "But it's right, Jess. I've never been more certain of anything." Angela's goodbye was quieter, but no less emotional. "Be happy," she said simply. "You deserve all the happiness in the world, Bella." Renee was harder, her mother's arms wrapped around Bella in a hug that lasted longer than comfortable, her floral perfume overwhelming, her tears soaking into Bella's shoulder. "My baby," Renee kept saying. "My little girl, all grown up and married." Bella let her mother hold on, knowing this might be the last time Renee hugged her human daughter, though Renee couldn't know that. After the honeymoon would come transformation, and everything would change in ways Renee could never be told about. Then, as the party reached its peak energy, a figure appeared at the edge of the gathering that made Bella's breath catch. Jacob Black stood in the shadows beyond the string lights, his tall frame tense, his russet skin gleaming with the slight sheen that meant he was running hot. He wore khaki pants and a button-down shirt that looked borrowed, his long black hair pulled back. His dark eyes found Bella across the distance, and the pain in them was visceral. Bella moved toward him without conscious decision, weaving through dancing guests. Edward's hand caught her arm gently, his expression troubled. "Are you sure?" he asked quietly. "Being here is torture for him." "I need to talk to him," Bella said. "Please, Edward, let me say goodbye properly." Edward nodded, releasing her arm, and Bella continued toward where Jacob waited, stopping just at the edge of the light. "Jake," she said softly, "you came." Jacob's jaw was tight, his hands clenched into fists at his sides. "Billy sent me," he said, his voice rough. "Said it was important for the pack to show respect. But I came because I needed to see you, Bells. Needed to say goodbye before you go through with this." "It's not insanity," Bella said. "It's my choice." "It's suicide," Jacob countered. "You're throwing away everything human for him." So I can be with Edward forever, Bella corrected. So I can finally be his equal. So I can have the life I've chosen. Jacob closed his eyes, pain etched across his features. I can't watch this, he said. Can't stand here and smile and pretend I'm okay with you destroying yourself. But I brought you something. From Billy in the pack. A wedding gift. He pulled a small package from his pocket, wrapped in simple brown paper. Bella took it with shaking hands, unwrapping it to reveal a handmade bracelet woven from leather cord, carved with wolf designs, beautiful and clearly crafted with care. It's from all of us, Jacob said, a reminder that you'll always be part of La Push, no matter what you become, that some part of your heart belongs here, with warmth instead of cold. Bella's eyes were swimming with tears. Jake, I can't accept this if it means you think there's still a chance I'll change my mind. There's no chance, Jacob said bitterly. I know that. You've made your choice. This is just so you remember us when you're one of them. He helped her fasten the bracelet around her wrist, his warm fingers gentle against her skin, and for a moment, they were just Jacob and Bella again. Best friends who'd found comfort in each other during dark times. Then Jacob stepped back, his expression shuddering. Goodbye, Bella, he said. I hope immortality is everything you think it'll be. He turned and walked into the darkness before Bella could respond, his form disappearing into shadows, and she heard the sound of phasing moments later. The russet wolf running into the forest, carrying his heartbreak away from the celebration. Bella stood holding the bracelet, tears sliding down her cheeks, mourning the friendship that couldn't survive her choices. Edward appeared beside her, his cold hand on her shoulder. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I know losing him hurts. It does, Bella admitted. But it doesn't change anything. I've still chosen you. I'll always choose you. They returned to the reception together, and the party continued around them, moving toward its natural conclusion. The human guests began departing, driving away with waves and congratulations. Finally, as midnight approached, Alice appeared with Bella's going-away outfit, announcing it was time for the bride and groom to depart for their honeymoon. Bella changed from her wedding dress into comfortable traveling clothes. She said final goodbyes to Charlie and Renee, to the remaining guests, to the Cullens who would stay behind. Then she and Edward were in his Volvo, driving away from the house that had hosted the most important day of her life, heading toward whatever came next. The honeymoon waited, mysterious and anticipated. And beyond that, transformation loomed, the change that would make her Edward's equal, his true, forever companion. But tonight, driving through the dark streets of Forks toward an unknown destination, Bella was simply happy. Her hand in Edward's, the wedding ring on her finger, the bracelet on her wrist, a reminder of everything she was leaving behind and everything she was choosing instead. The drive to Seattle took just over 3 hours, Edward pushing the Volvo to speeds that would have terrified Bella if she wasn't already numb with exhaustion and the emotional overflow of the day. She dozed against the window, her wedding dress carefully packed in the trunk, her going-away clothes comfortable and soft. The ring on her finger caught streetlight as they passed through sleeping towns, a constant reminder that everything had changed, that she was married now, Mrs. Edward Cullen in reality, rather than just imagination. Edward drove in silence, one hand on the wheel, the other holding Bella's across the console, his thumb tracing absent patterns on her skin. He didn't need to concentrate on driving the way humans did, his vampire reflexes making navigation automatic, allowing him to spend the drive watching her instead, his golden eyes soft with an emotion Bella was still learning to read, but that looked suspiciously like wonder. "Where are we going?" Bella asked for perhaps the 20th time since leaving Forks, her voice muzzy with approaching sleep. "It's a surprise," Edward said, as he'd said every other time she'd asked. "Trust me, Bella, you'll love it." She did trust him completely, and perhaps foolishly, so she let the mystery remain and drifted back towards sleep as the miles passed beneath them. They arrived at a private airfield outside Seattle, just as dawn was breaking, the sky lightening from black to deep purple to that particular shade of grey that preceded sunrise. A small jet waited on the tarmac, sleek and expensive, and bearing no obvious markings, the kind of aircraft only the very wealthy could afford to charter, or own, which Bella suspected was more likely given Carlisle's resources and the Cullens' need for private transportation that didn't ask questions about passenger manifests or identification. "A honeymoon requiring a private jet," Bella said, as Edward helped her from the car, her exhaustion making her unsteady on her feet. "That's either very romantic or very excessive. Can't it be both?" Edward asked, his lips quirking into that crooked smile she loved. "Come on, Mrs. Cullen. Your chariot awaits." The interior of the jet was as luxurious as Bella had expected. All leather seats and polished wood, and the kind of quiet that came from serious money spent on soundproofing. A flight attendant greeted them with professional courtesy that didn't quite mask her curiosity about the young couple boarding at dawn, and Edward guided Bella to a seat near the window before settling beside her. The flight would be long, Edward explained, as the jet began its taxi toward the runway. 10 hours, maybe 11 depending on winds. "You should sleep, Bella. We won't arrive until the evening, and I want you rested." Bella wanted to protest, wanted to stay awake and watch the journey unfold, but exhaustion was already pulling her under. The combination of wedding stress and emotional goodbyes and the sheer overwhelming nature of the day had drained her completely. She leaned against Edward's cold shoulder, feeling his arm wrap around her, and let sleep claim her as the jet lifted into the brightening sky. She woke periodically during the flight, surfacing from dreams she couldn't quite remember to find Edward still beside her, still watching her with that same tender intensity. He'd shift slightly when she stirred, offering water or the snacks the flight attendant had left, asking if she needed anything, his attentiveness almost overwhelming in its constancy. "I'm fine," Bella assured him during one such waking. "You don't have to watch me sleep for the entire flight. I like watching you sleep," Edward said simply. "It's one of my favorite things. The way your face relaxes, the little sounds you make, the way your heartbeat slows. I'll miss it when you're transformed, when sleep becomes impossible." The reminder of impending transformation sent a small thrill through Bella, anticipation mixed with nervousness. Soon she'd be like him, cold and strong and immortal. But not yet. First came the honeymoon, this mysterious destination Edward refused to reveal. These final days or weeks of experiencing the world as human before everything changed. The jet began its descent as evening approached, the sun dropping toward the horizon outside Bella's window. She pressed her face to the glass, trying to get some sense of where they were, but saw only ocean, endless blue-green water stretching in all directions. "Are we landing in the ocean?" she asked, only half joking. "Close," Edward said, his expression carrying satisfaction at having kept the secret this long. "We're landing in Rio de Janeiro, but that's not our final destination. We have one more leg of the journey after that." Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Bella's breath caught at the implications, the sheer distance from Forks and Washington, and everything familiar. Edward had brought her to the other side of the world for their honeymoon, to a place where sunshine and warmth were constants rather than rare miracles. The landing was smooth, the jet touching down at what appeared to be another private airfield, smaller than the one in Seattle but equally exclusive. The air that rushed in when the door opened was warm and humid and smelled like flowers and ocean, and something tropical Bella couldn't identify. The heat hit her like a physical thing after the air-conditioned comfort of the plane, making her immediately grateful for the light clothes she'd changed into. Edward led her across the tarmac to where a car waited, a nondescript sedan with a driver who greeted Edward in Portuguese and helped load their minimal luggage. They drove through Rio as darkness fell completely, the city coming alive with lights and music and energy that felt overwhelming after quiet Forks. Bella caught glimpses of beaches and mountains and Christ the Redeemer statue illuminated on its hilltop perch, the famous landmark smaller in person than in photographs, but no less impressive. The drive ended at a marina where boats of various sizes bobbed in dark water, their running lights creating constellations reflected on the surface. Edward thanked the driver in Portuguese that sounded fluent and native, then guided Bella toward a sleek motor yacht that looked expensive even to Bella's inexperienced eyes. "Now will you tell me where we're going?" Bella asked as Edward helped her aboard. "Isle Esme," Edward said, his voice carrying a particular softness. "It's an island Carlyle bought for Esme a few years ago. A private sanctuary she can visit when she needs peace and solitude. She's given it to us for our honeymoon, a gift so we can have complete privacy. An entire island. A private island." Bella's mind struggled to process the scale of the gift, the level of wealth and generosity required to simply give newlyweds an island for a few weeks. But then Edward was starting the yacht's engines, was guiding them out of the marina into open water, and Bella was too busy trying not to fall over as the boat picked up speed to fully process the absurdity of her new life. The journey across the water took perhaps an hour, the lights of Rio fading behind them until only stars and moon illuminated the night. Bella stood at the bow, feeling the warm wind in her hair, tasting salt spray on her lips, and tried to comprehend that this was her life now, that she was married to a vampire and heading to a private island in Brazil for her honeymoon, that soon she'd be transformed, and this adventure would be just the beginning of an eternal existence. Edward appeared behind her, his cold arms wrapping around her waist, his chin resting on her shoulder. "There," he said quietly, pointing ahead. "That's Isle Esme." Bella followed his gesture and saw it, a dark shape rising from darker water, trees silhouetted against the star-filled sky, a house barely visible through the foliage, lights glowing warm and welcoming. It looked like paradise. It looked like the kind of place that existed in dreams rather than reality, impossible and perfect and waiting just for them. The yacht approached a small dock, and Edward secured it with practiced ease before helping Bella onto the weathered boards. Her legs were unsteady after the boat ride, exhaustion and excitement making her clumsy. Edward simply swept her into his arms, carrying her like the traditional bride over the threshold, and Bella laughed despite her nervousness, her arms wrapping around his neck. "Welcome to Isle Esme," Edward said, and carried his wife into paradise. The house was beautiful in a way that took Bella's breath away. All white walls and open spaces, and enormous windows that would let in sunshine and ocean views during the day. The main room flowed seamlessly into a kitchen, and then out through massive sliding doors onto a deck that overlooked the beach. Furniture in shades of cream and blue gave the space a peaceful elegance. Gauze curtains hung from the ceiling, drifting in the warm breeze. But Bella barely noticed the decor because Edward was carrying her through the living room toward a bedroom, and suddenly the reality of the situation crashed over her. They were married. They were on their honeymoon. And Edward was carrying her toward a bed, toward the wedding night she'd been anticipating and dreading in equal measure. "Edward," she said, her voice coming out higher than intended. "Maybe we should look around first." Edward paused, his golden eyes searching her face. "We have all the time in the world," he said gently. "There's no rush, Bella. We can go as slowly as you need." But Bella could see the tension in his frame, the careful control he was exerting, and she knew he wanted this as much as she did, had waited over a century for something he'd never thought he'd experience. "No," she said, forcing steadiness into her voice. "I'm ready, Edward. I want this." The bedroom was dominated by a massive bed draped in white linens and surrounded by gauze curtains that the breeze moved in gentle waves. Moonlight streamed through windows that faced the ocean, and the sound of waves provided a constant background rhythm. Edward set her down carefully, his hands lingering on her waist. "Are you certain?" he asked. "Because we can wait, Bella. I've waited this long." "I'm certain," Bella said. "I love you. I want to be with you completely." What happened next was gentle and careful and somewhat awkward. Two people navigating intimacy with different levels of experience and wildly different levels of strength. Edward was so controlled, so cautious, his movements slow and measured as if Bella were made of glass. Every touch was feather-light, every kiss restrained, and Bella could feel him holding back constantly. "It's okay," she whispered against his cold lips. "I'm not going to break." "Yes, you will," Edward said, his voice strained. "You're so fragile, Bella. I have to be careful." And he was. So careful that afterward, as they lay together in the tangled sheets with moonlight painting patterns across their skin, Bella felt almost disappointed that it was over. Then she shifted, felt the ache in muscles she hadn't known she had, and Edward's expression transformed into horror. He was out of the bed in a blur of motion, standing several feet away, his face stricken. "Bella," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Oh God, Bella, I hurt you." "What?" Bella sat up, confused. "No, Edward, I'm fine. Come back to bed." But Edward was backing toward the door, his golden eyes fixed on her with anguish. "Look at yourself," he said. "Look at what I've done to you." Bella looked down and saw what had triggered his reaction. Bruises, dark purple and blue, scattered across her arms and hips and shoulders, places where Edward's hands had gripped, where his strength had exceeded what her fragile human body could withstand, despite all his caution. "It's fine," Bella said quickly, "Edward, these don't hurt. I barely feel them." "Come back." "No," Edward said, and the word carried finality. "I can't. I won't risk hurting you again." "This was a mistake, Bella. I should never have agreed to this while you're still human." He disappeared through the door before Bella could protest further, leaving her alone in the massive bed, confused and frustrated. She'd finally gotten what she'd been wanting for months, and now Edward was running away because of a few bruises. Edward didn't return that night. Bella eventually fell asleep alone, wrapped in sheets that still smelled like him, listening to the ocean and wondering how something that should have been perfect had gone so wrong. The next days fell into a pattern that was both paradise and frustration. Edward was attentive and loving in every way, except the physical intimacy Bella craved. He made her breakfast, elaborate tropical fruit arrangements and eggs cooked perfectly. He took her swimming in the impossibly blue water, supporting her when the waves got too strong. He showed her the island's hidden treasures, a freshwater lagoon with water so clear you could see every pebble on the bottom, a cliff perfect for diving. They talked for hours, lying in hammocks strung between palm trees, discussing everything and nothing. Edward told her stories from his century of existence. Bella shared memories of her childhood in Phoenix, of her mother's chaotic warmth. They played chess on the deck as the sun set, Edward winning every game but clearly enjoying the competition. He played piano on the beautiful instrument in the corner of the living room, composing new melodies inspired by the island. And at night, they slept in the same bed, Edward holding Bella carefully, but nothing more intimate despite Bella's increasingly obvious attempts at seduction. "Edward," Bella said one evening, about a week into the honeymoon, her frustration finally boiling over. "We need to talk about this." They were on the beach, watching the sun melt into the ocean in shades of orange and pink and gold. Edward's arm was around her shoulders, his posture relaxed despite underlying tension. "Talk about what?" he asked, though his tone suggested he knew exactly what. "About the fact that you won't touch me," Bella said bluntly. "About the fact that we're on our honeymoon and you're acting like we're just friends. About the bruises, Edward, which are completely gone now." "I noticed," Edward said quietly, "but that doesn't change what I did. I hurt you, Bella. What if next time I lose control more? What if I break your ribs or crack your skull?" "You won't," Bella said. "You're too controlled, too careful." "Those bruises were nothing, Edward. They're the price of being human with a vampire. A price I'm willing to pay." "Well, I'm not," Edward countered, his voice carrying an edge. "I won't risk you like that again. Not until you're transformed." "So what? We just don't touch each other for the rest of the honeymoon?" Bella asked, anger making her voice sharp. "We came all this way to this beautiful place, and we're going to spend it like roommates?" Edward flinched at that, pain crossing his face. "I'm trying to protect you," he said. "Why can't you understand that?" "I don't need protection from you," Bella said. "I need my husband to actually be my husband." They sat in tense silence as the sun finished its descent. Finally, Edward spoke, his voice careful. "What if we compromise?" he said. "I'll try, Bella. I'll try to be less restrictive. But you have to promise me you'll tell me if I'm hurting you, even a little. The moment you feel pain, we stop. Agreed?" "Agreed," Bella said immediately, relief flooding through her. That night was different. Edward, slightly less restrained though still impossibly careful, and Bella finally felt like they were actually on their honeymoon. The bruises that appeared afterward were lighter, fewer, and while Edward's expression still carried guilt, he didn't flee the room. The days blurred together in the way that vacation time always did. They swam and explored and made love with increasing confidence, Edward learning the limits of Bella's human fragility. They ate fresh fish that Edward somehow acquired, tropical fruit that dripped juice down Bella's chin, meals eaten on the deck as the sun painted the sky in impossible colors. Bella lost track of days, stopped counting how long they'd been on the island. She existed only in the present, in the warmth of the sun and the coolness of Edward's skin, and the constant rhythm of waves against shore. This was happiness, she thought. This was what being married meant. But after 2 weeks, Bella noticed something changing. The food started tasting wrong, particularly chicken that Edward had prepared one evening. The smell made her stomach lurch, and she pushed the plate away with apologies she couldn't quite explain. She was tired more often, needing long naps in the afternoon, sleeping deeply through nights when she should have been waking refreshed. Edward noticed too, his brow furrowing when she declined dinner or fell asleep during their evening chess games. "Are you feeling all right?" he asked. "Maybe the heat is too much. We could leave, go somewhere cooler." "I'm fine," Bella insisted, though she wasn't entirely certain that was true. "Just tired. Honeymoons are exhausting, apparently." But the exhaustion deepened, became something more than simple tiredness. Her body felt different in ways she couldn't articulate, strange and foreign and wrong. She woke one morning with nausea rolling through her stomach, barely making it to the bathroom before being violently sick. Edward was there instantly, holding her hair back, his cold hand on her forehead, his expression carved with worry. "That's it," he said firmly. "We're going home." "Something's wrong, Bella. You need to see Carlisle." But Bella wasn't ready to leave paradise yet, wasn't ready to face the reality of transformation and the end of her human life. "It's probably just something I ate," she protested weakly. "Or maybe I'm getting my period. It should have come by now." The words hung in the air between them, and Bella watched Edward's face as understanding slowly dawned, as impossible mathematics began to calculate in his century-old mind. His expression shifted from worry to confusion to something that looked like dawning horror. "When was your last period?" he asked, his voice very controlled, very careful. Bella thought back, trying to remember through the haze of wedding planning and honeymoon bliss. "Before the wedding," she said slowly. "A week or two before, maybe 3 weeks. I don't know, Edward. I haven't been keeping track." Edward went very still, that particular frozen quality that meant he was thinking intensely, processing information, calculating outcomes. His golden eyes were fixed on Bella's stomach with an intensity that made her uncomfortable. "That's not possible," he said finally. "It can't be. Vampires can't have children, Bella. We're essentially dead. Our bodies don't work that way." But even as he said it, Bella's hand moved to her stomach, pressing against the slight firmness she'd been ignoring. The change she'd attributed to good food and lazy days. And she knew, with sudden terrible certainty, that impossible or not, something was growing inside her. Something was very, very wrong, or very, very right, depending on how you looked at it. Either way, the honeymoon was over. The panic that followed Bella's words was immediate and visceral. Edward was pacing the bedroom like a caged animal, his usual grace replaced by agitated movement that spoke of barely controlled terror. His hands kept running through his bronze hair, making it stand in wild directions, and his eyes had gone dark with emotion. Bella couldn't fully read, but that looked suspiciously like horror. "It's not possible," he kept saying, the words a mantra repeated over and over, as if saying them enough times would make them true. "Vampires can't procreate, Bella. Our bodies are frozen, unchanging. We can't create life. It's one of the fundamental truths of what we are." But Bella's hand remained pressed against her stomach, feeling the slight swell there that had been growing so gradually she'd attributed it to honeymoon indulgence. Now, looking at it with new understanding, she could see it wasn't normal bloating or weight gain. Her stomach was harder than it should be, firmer, like something solid was taking up space where only soft organs should exist. "I think it is possible," Bella said quietly, her voice carrying a strange calm despite the fear churning beneath. "I think I'm pregnant, Edward. I don't know how, but I am." Edward stopped pacing, turning to face her with an expression that made Bella's breath catch. He looked devastated, utterly destroyed, as if she'd announced her imminent death, rather than a potential pregnancy. "If you are," he said slowly, his voice barely above a whisper, "if there's something growing inside you, Bella, it's not a baby, it's a monster. A thing that will kill you from the inside out. We need to get rid of it immediately, before it's too late." The words hit Bella like a physical blow, making her arms wrap protectively around her middle. "Get rid of it?" she repeated. "Edward, if I'm pregnant, if there's a baby, you're talking about our child. How can you want to just eliminate it?" "Because it will kill you," Edward said, and there was such certainty in his voice that Bella felt the first real stirring of fear beyond the general anxiety. "Bella, think about it logically. You're a fragile human carrying something that's part vampire, something with vampire strength and vampire growth rate and vampire nature. It will tear you apart trying to be born. I won't watch that happen. I won't lose you to this." But Bella's hands remained on her stomach, and beneath the fear was something else, something protective and fierce that she didn't fully understand, but couldn't ignore. "You don't know that," she said. "You're assuming the worst without any evidence." "The evidence is biology," Edward countered, his voice rising slightly. "Vampires are predators, Bella, killers by nature. If there's something inside you that's part vampire, it's going to act on those instincts. It's probably already feeding on you, draining your blood, weakening you from within." The nausea Bella had been experiencing suddenly made terrible sense in that context, as did the exhaustion and the strange food aversions. If Edward was right, if there was something vampire growing inside her, then it would need blood to survive, would be taking it directly from Bella's own supply. "We need to call Carlyle," Edward said decisively, already moving toward the phone that sat on the table in the living room. "He'll know what to do. He'll have medical equipment, surgical tools. We can end this safely, Bella, before it grows any stronger." "No," Bella said, the word coming out sharper than intended. "We're not doing anything until we know what we're dealing with. Call Carlyle if you want, get his medical opinion, but I'm not agreeing to any procedures until I have all the information." Edward's expression was anguished as he picked up the satellite phone, his fingers dialing with vampire speed. The call connected after several rings, and Bella heard Carlisle's calm voice answer, asking what was wrong with enough concern to suggest he'd sensed the emergency in Edward's call. Edward explained the situation in clinical terms that made Bella flinch, describing her symptoms and his theory about the pregnancy with the detachment of a doctor rather than a husband. Carlisle's responses were too quiet for Bella to hear clearly, but she could sense the gravity in Edward's reactions, the way his face grew progressively more stricken as the conversation continued. Finally, Edward hung up, his hand trembling slightly as he set the phone down. Carlisle says it's theoretically possible, he said, his voice hollow. Male vampires retain some human fluids, including the venom that creates new vampires. If that venom somehow fertilized a human egg, the result would be a hybrid, half human, half vampire. He says there are legends about such creatures, old stories the Volturi keep buried, but he's never seen one personally. Legends, Bella repeated. What do the legends say? Edward was silent for a long moment, his expression suggesting he didn't want to share what came next. They say the hybrids are dangerous, he finally said, that they grow at accelerated rates, reaching full maturity in just years rather than decades, that they're venomous but not immortal, powerful but not invincible. And they say, his voice dropped even lower, that the mothers rarely survive the pregnancy. The hybrid strength breaks them from the inside. They die in childbirth if they make it that far. Bella processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the protective instinct that had taken root in her chest. Legends, she said again, which means they're not necessarily accurate, which means we don't actually know what will happen. Bella, Edward said, and his voice was pleading now, desperate. Please, let Carlisle remove it. Let me save your life while I still can. I can't watch you die. I won't survive it. But Bella's hands remained protectively on her stomach, and she was shaking her head before he'd even finished speaking. No, she said firmly. This is my body, Edward, my choice, and I'm choosing to keep it, to see what happens, to give this baby a chance to exist. It's not a baby, Edward said, his voice breaking. It's a thing, a monster wearing the mask of our child. It will kill you, Bella, and I'll have to live with that for eternity. You don't know that, Bella repeated, and until you do, until we have actual evidence rather than legends and assumptions, I'm not agreeing to anything. The argument continued for hours, circular and bitter and ultimately futile. Edward pleaded and reasoned and eventually resorted to outright begging, but Bella remained immovable. Something had shifted inside her the moment she'd realized she was pregnant. Some fundamental maternal instinct that overrode logic and self-preservation. This was her child, hers and Edward's, and she would protect it even if that protection was from its own father. Finally, as dawn approached and exhaustion made further argument impossible, Edward made a decision. We're going home, he said. Today, I'm calling the pilot, arranging for the jet to pick us up in Rio. Carlisle needs to examine you, run tests, determine exactly what we're dealing with, and then we'll decide what to do next. Bella wanted to argue, wanted to stay in paradise where reality felt distant and manageable, but she knew Edward was right. If she was pregnant with something hybrid and dangerous, she needed medical supervision, needed Carlisle's expertise and the resources only the Cullen house could provide. The journey back to Washington was nightmarish in its urgency and discomfort. Bella's exhaustion made the yacht ride from Isle Esme to Rio almost unbearable, and by the time they reached the jet, she was fighting nausea and dizziness that suggested whatever was inside her was growing rapidly, demanding resources her body struggled to provide. Edward held her during the flight, his cold arms the only thing keeping her upright, his expression carved from stone as he watched her deteriorate by the hour. He didn't say "I told you so," didn't gloat about being right, just held her and whispered apologies she didn't understand for crimes he thought he'd committed. "Drink this," he said at one point, offering her a cup filled with dark liquid that smelled metallic and wrong. "What is it?" Bella asked, though part of her already knew. "Blood," Edward said bluntly, "from the flight attendant's private stock. If the thing inside you needs blood to survive, we need to provide it. Drinking it might slow the damage it's doing to your body." The idea of drinking blood should have been revolting, should have made Bella's stomach rebel. But instead she found herself reaching for the cup with desperate hands. The first sip was strange, coppery and thick, but not as terrible as she'd feared. And almost immediately, she felt better, the exhaustion receding slightly, the nausea settling. She drank the entire cup and asked for more, and Edward provided it with an expression that suggested he was dying inside, but would do anything to keep her alive, even feed her human blood. They landed in Seattle as evening approached, and the Cullen family was waiting at the private airfield, their faces showing varying degrees of concern and horror. Carlyle rushed forward immediately, his doctor's instincts overriding social niceties as he began examining Bella right there on the tarmac. "Her pulse is weak," he said after pressing his cold fingers to her wrist, heart rate elevated but erratic. "Bella, I need to get you to the house immediately. Run a full examination. This is serious." The drive to the Cullen house passed in a blur. Bella drifted in and out of consciousness, aware of Edward's arms around her, of Carlyle's voice giving instructions, of the general atmosphere of crisis that surrounded them. She woke fully on what appeared to be a hospital bed that had been set up in Carlyle's study, medical equipment surrounding her that looked expensive and complicated. Carlyle was moving an ultrasound wand across her stomach, his eyes fixed on a screen Bella couldn't see from her angle. "There," Carlyle said quietly, and his voice carried wonder mixed with concern. "There's definitely something there, something with a heartbeat much faster than human normal, growing at a rate that suggests full gestation will take weeks rather than months." "Weeks," Edward repeated, his voice hollow. "So we have weeks before it kills her, or weeks before she gives birth to something unprecedented," Carlyle corrected gently. "Edward, I understand your fear, but we need to approach this scientifically rather than emotionally. Let me run tests, monitor her condition, determine the actual risks before we discuss termination." But the word termination hung in the air like a threat, and Bella felt her arms wrap protectively around her stomach, despite the medical equipment in the way. "No one is terminating anything," a voice said from the doorway, and Bella turned to see Rosalie standing there, her beautiful face set in lines of fierce determination. "If Bella wants to keep her baby, then we protect them both. That's what family does." "It's not a baby," Edward said again, but his voice lacked conviction now, worn down by hours of argument. "It is to me," Bella said quietly. "It is to me, and I'm keeping it. And I need all of you to help me survive long enough to give birth. Please." The room fell silent as the Cullens processed this request, this impossible situation. Finally, Carlyle nodded slowly. "Then we'll do everything we can," he said. "Monitor your condition constantly. Provide whatever the hybrid needs to minimize damage to you. Prepare for delivery when the time comes." "But Bella," he added, his kind eyes serious, "you need to understand the risks. The mortality rate for human mothers carrying hybrid children is essentially 100% according to the legends. You're choosing to risk your life for this baby." "I know," Bella said, "and I'm choosing it anyway. This is my child, mine and Edward's. That makes it worth dying for." Edward made a sound that might have been a sob, his face buried in his hands, and Bella reached for him with one hand while the other remained protectively on her stomach. The honeymoon was over. Paradise was behind them, and ahead lay weeks of uncertainty and danger and a birth that might kill her, but that she was determined to survive. Because the thing growing inside her wasn't a monster. No matter what Edward believed, it was their child, their miracle, and Bella would fight with everything she had to bring it safely into the world. The Cullen house transformed into a medical facility within hours of Bella's return. Carlyle converting his study into a fully equipped examination room, complete with monitors and equipment that beeped and hummed with constant surveillance of Bella's deteriorating condition. The hospital bed dominated the space, positioned near the windows, so Bella could at least see the forest beyond the glass, though she rarely had energy to appreciate the view. The days blurred together in a haze of exhaustion and pain, and the constant presence of vampires monitoring her every breath. Carlyle checked her vital signs hourly, his doctor's face growing progressively more concerned as the numbers told the story of a human body being consumed from within. Her weight dropped despite constant eating. Her skin took on a greyish pallor that suggested severe anemia, and the bruises that appeared across her torso spoke of internal damage as the hybrid grew with supernatural speed. The thing inside her was strong, impossibly strong, for something so small. Bella could feel it moving, could feel the impacts against her ribs and spine that sometimes brought tears to her eyes despite her determination not to show weakness. Carlyle confirmed through ultrasound that the baby was growing at a rate that suggested full development in approximately 4 weeks from conception, meaning they were already halfway through what would normally be a 9-month pregnancy. "You need to drink more," Rosalie said, appearing at Bella's bedside with another cup of blood, donated human blood that Carlyle had acquired from the hospital through carefully worded requisitions that wouldn't raise suspicions. The blood helped, provided nutrients that regular food couldn't, seemed to satisfy whatever the hybrid was craving. Bella had stopped being squeamish about it after the first day, desperation overriding disgust. She drank the blood Rosalie offered, feeling the immediate surge of energy that came with feeding the thing that was feeding on her. Rosalie had become Bella's most constant companion and fiercest defender, sitting beside the bed for hours, bringing blood and encouragement in equal measure. The rest of the Cullens had divided into camps, some supporting Bella's choice to continue the pregnancy, others siding with Edward's belief that termination was the only way to save her life. Edward himself was barely holding together, his usual composure shattered by watching Bella deteriorate daily. He sat in a chair across the room, too afraid to get closer, too terrified that his presence somehow made things worse. His golden eyes never left Bella except when Carlyle performed examinations, and even then he listened with vampire hearing to every word, every measurement, every indication that Bella was dying. 3 ribs broken, Carlyle announced after one such examination, his fingers gentle on Bella's sides despite the pain that made her gasp. The hybrid's movements are getting stronger. Your bones can't withstand the impact much longer, Bella. We need to consider delivery soon, before the damage becomes catastrophic. How soon? Bella asked through gritted teeth. Days, Carlyle said. A week at most. The hybrid is nearly full term by its own accelerated standards. We can't wait much longer without risking your spine or other vital structures. The pack had learned of Bella's condition through some mysterious supernatural grapevine, and Jacob had appeared at the Cullen house 2 days after their return, his face a mask of fury and pain as he demanded to see her. The Cullens had initially refused, but Bella had insisted, and now Jacob sat in the corner of the study, his body radiating heat that provided strange comfort against the constant chill of the vampires surrounding her. "This is insane," Jacob said for perhaps the 20th time, his dark eyes fixed on Bella's emaciated form. "You're letting that thing kill you, Bells. Just let Carlyle remove it. Please, I can't watch you die for a monster." "It's not a monster," Bella said, her voice weak but stubborn. "It's my baby, Jake. Mine and Edward's. I know you don't understand, but I need you to respect my choice." Jacob's hands clenched into fists, his whole body trembling with the effort of not phasing, of maintaining human form when his wolf instinct screamed at him to destroy the abomination growing inside Bella. But he stayed, visiting daily, his presence a connection to the warmth and humanity Bella was sacrificing for this pregnancy. The house itself was divided, tensions running high as the Cullens argued about what should be done. Emmett and Jasper sided with Edward, believing termination was the only logical choice. Esme was torn, her maternal instincts warring with her love for Edward and concern for Bella. Alice couldn't see anything, her visions blocked by the hybrid's presence, leaving her frustrated and anxious about the unknowable future. Only Rosalie stood firmly with Bella, her own complicated relationship with motherhood making her fierce in defense of Bella's right to choose. She'd wanted children for decades, had mourned the inability to create life that came with vampirism, and she saw in Bella's pregnancy a miracle that shouldn't be destroyed just because it was dangerous. "You're so strong," Rosalie whispered, during one of Bella's worst moments, when pain made breathing difficult and movement impossible. "Stronger than any of us. You're fighting for your baby despite everything, and that's the most beautiful thing I've ever seen." The deterioration accelerated as the 3rd week approached. Bella's spine showed stress fractures on the x-rays Carlyle took. Her heart struggled to pump blood that the hybrid was consuming faster than her body could replace it. She slept more than she was awake, her body shutting down non-essential functions to preserve energy for the pregnancy. Edward finally broke during one particularly bad episode when Bella screamed in pain as the hybrid kicked and something inside her cracked audibly. He was at her side in an instant, his cold hands on her face, his voice breaking as he begged, "Please, Bella, please just let it go. Let Carlyle end this. I'll give you anything, do anything. But please don't make me watch you die. I can't survive it. I won't survive it." Bella's hand found his, squeezed with what little strength she had left. "You promised," she whispered. Promise you'd stay with me. Promise you'd honor my choices. I need you to keep that promise, Edward. I need you to be strong for both of us. How can I be strong when you're dying? Edward asked, tears that couldn't fall glistening in his eyes. How can I watch this and not break completely? Because I need you, Bella said simply. Our baby needs you. After this is over, after I'm transformed, we'll be a family. But you have to let me do this first. You have to trust me. The word transformation hung between them, and Carlyle cleared his throat gently. About that, he said, Bella, we need to discuss the plan for after delivery. The trauma to your body will be severe, potentially fatal without immediate intervention. I'll need to deliver the baby and begin your transformation within seconds. There won't be time for goodbyes or preparation. I understand, Bella said. I'm ready. I've been ready for months. But Edward's expression suggested he wasn't ready at all. Wasn't prepared to watch Bella die and hoped the transformation worked quickly enough to bring her back. The fear in his face was terrible to see, ancient and all-consuming. They decided on a name during one of Bella's more lucid moments, Edward finally accepting that the baby would be born. That preparation was necessary whether he agreed with the choice or not. If it's a girl, Bella said, I want to call her Renesmee. Renee and Esme combined, for our mothers. And if it's a boy, Edward asked, his voice carefully neutral. EJ, Bella said. Edward Jacob, for you and for Jake, for the two people I love most besides you. Jacob's expression when he heard this was complicated. Pain and honor and grief all mixed together. You're naming your vampire hybrid kid after me, he said, his voice rough. Bells. I don't know whether to be touched or horrified. Be touched, Bella said. Please, Jake. I need you to be okay with this. Need you to help protect the baby after I'm gone. Promise me. Jacob was quiet for a long moment, internal war visible on his face. Finally, he nodded. I promise, he said. I'll protect your kid, Bells, even if it's part vampire. Even if every instinct I have says it's wrong. I promise. Contractions started on day 28, earlier than Carlyle had hoped, but not unexpected given the hybrid's accelerated development. Bella woke to pain that made previous discomfort seem trivial. Her body trying to expel something too large and too strong for human birth to safely accommodate. Carlyle, she gasped. And immediately the room filled with vampires, everyone moving with supernatural speed to prepare for delivery. Edward was at her side, his cold hand gripping hers, his face absolutely terrified. I love you, he kept saying, over and over like a prayer. I love you, Bella. Don't leave me. Please don't leave me. I won't, Bella promised, though she could feel her body breaking, could feel consciousness slipping as blood loss and trauma overwhelmed her system. I'll come back. I promise I'll come back. The delivery was brutal and fast. Carlyle working with vampire precision to extract the baby before it could do more damage. Bella felt something tear inside her, felt her spine crack under pressure, felt her heart stutter as blood loss became critical. Then there was a sound, a cry, high and strange, and undeniably alive. It's a girl, Carlyle said, his voice carrying wonder despite the medical crisis. Bella, you have a daughter. She's perfect. Bella tried to see, tried to turn her head toward where Carlyle was holding something small and bloody, but her vision was graying, consciousness fading despite her desperate attempts to hold on. She felt Edward's cold lips on her forehead, heard his voice saying, I love you one more time. child's teeth were at her neck, venom flooding her system, and the transformation began with pain that made childbirth seem gentle by comparison. Fire in her veins, burning from the inside out, consuming everything human and remaking it into something immortal. The last thing Bella heard before the transformation pain consumed her completely was her daughter's cry, strange and beautiful and worth every moment of suffering. Then there was only fire, only pain, only the long, slow death of humanity and the birth of something vampire. She'd made her choice, kept her baby, survived long enough to bring Renesmee into the world. Now she just had to survive the transformation and wake up to the forever she'd been promised, cold and immortal and ready to be the mother and wife she'd chosen to become. The fire burned on, and Bella surrendered to it, trusting Edward and Carlisle and her own strength to see her through to the other side. And so, Bella's wedding day became something more than vows spoken at twilight, more than a honeymoon in paradise, more than the simple joining of two souls in love. It became the beginning of transformation in ways she'd never anticipated, the start of a journey from human to vampire that detoured through motherhood first. She'd walked down the aisle as Bella Swan, said goodbye to Jacob with tears in her eyes, travelled to an island where impossible things became real. She discovered that love between human and vampire could create something unprecedented, something that shouldn't exist, but did anyway, fierce and alive and worth dying for. The fire of transformation burned through her veins now, remaking her into something cold and eternal and strong. When she woke, she'd meet her daughter with vampire eyes, hold Renesmee with arms that wouldn't break, love Edward with an eternity stretching before them. The wedding had been beautiful. The honeymoon had been paradise and terror intertwined, and the transformation was the price of forever, paid willingly for love and family and the choice to embrace the impossible. So close your eyes now, drift into dreams where weddings lead to miracles, where love transcends biology, where human choices become immortal consequences. Rest well, travelers. Bella's forever is just beginning, and somewhere in the fire, she's becoming everything she was always meant to be. Sweet dreams.